When protests against law enforcement are boiling over in cities across the U.S., there's no better time to take a hard look at how one of these conflicts begins and how it can impact a city for decades afterwards. The people of Newark, New Jersey don't have to guess. For more than 50 years, they've lived with the specter of 5 days of conflict that left 26 people dead and destroyed a large portion of their city.
There were people here who had been stripped of their rights, who faced implacable walls of bigotry.
I think when you back anyone up against a wall and they feel helpless, they will strike back, they will fight back, they will riot.
You know, I remember it as if it were yesterday. It was the 13th of July, and some guy drove a car right into Flax's furniture store, and the looting began.
When I became a fireman, I knew that it was difficult, physical, dangerous work at times, but I never suspected that I would ever be shot at.
My mother was so afraid because she got 8 kids. She had us under the bed hiding. I remember bullets and stuff coming through.
I went out on the streets. I had a loaded gun with my hand almost on the trigger. Was I scared? Yeah.
It was stealing, burning other people's property, destruction of property.
Fire engines going everywhere, police cars going everywhere.
The National Guard, they were very serious, man. They were like, don't move, and people was moving, and they were shooting.
They would return fire on this high-rise, and I mean hundreds of rounds of ammunition. These are steel ball, armor-piercing rounds. They will go through a brick wall.
A whole city on fire. It looked like London in 1940 during the course of the London Blitz.
City has its worst nightmare. Some people said, okay, let's pick up where we left off.
This film features the people who were actually there and those who stayed behind to clean up the mess. See how one city spent over a half-century struggling to make peace with the darkest chapter in its history.
Should the boiling pot never boil over again? If it does, shame on us.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, today we have with us the director of a fantastic new documentary that has debuted yesterday, February 1st, on the PBS app and goes worldwide on February 12th, I believe. Riot: From Rebellion to Redemption, director Kevin McLaughlin. Kevin, say hello.
Hello, thanks for having me. Let me make one quick correction. We were originally told that the World Channel would be till February 12th, but they're running it, so it's everywhere as of now.
Perfect. I only go by the information I have, but I love to hear that. This documentary focuses on the 1967 Newark riots, in which 26 people were left dead and many others injured. Why would, aside from what I believe there's a personal connection to this for you, is that correct?
Yeah, I lived in the city. I grew up in the shadows of this event, because it lasted for decades afterwards, the aftermath. And my dad was a fireman in the city, so he was my connection to people who could speak about it firsthand.
Yeah, and I wondered that when I was watching, I saw the last name was the same. I'm like, is that his dad? Because that's not made clear, obviously. And some people, when they watch it, are not going to know that. Just because a lot of people, when they watch documentaries or PBS, they're not looking at who's the director of this and that. But I thought that was really interesting to have that personal connection. Let's start here. Let's start with the voice behind the whole thing. Getting Andre Braugher on this thing. How did you do that? And because, I mean, obviously he's very heavily missed by us in the world now since his passing in 2023.
Yeah, having him was a huge benefit. I just, started hunting around. The film was basically finished when I sought him out and went through his agency. I didn't know him or anything, but they put it out to him and he watched the rough cut. He really liked it and agreed to do it for way less than he had charged for other things. And in fact, over the course of wrapping it up, I did some tweaks and retakes and whatnot. And he came back 2 more times without charging me another penny. So it's just really happy with my work with him and just really saddened by losing him. That was a complete shock.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, not he wasn't very old when he passed, and it's a big loss for anybody who has seen his work. But let's talk about your documentary. It really gets to the spirit and the heart of what led to the riots and why they happened. And through various methods, whether that be interviews, whether that be illustrations, whether that be reenactments, things like that. There's not a lot of reenactments, but it's mostly animated, animations and things like that. We get a more up close and personal perspective on what the people of Newark went through during this time. And I wanted to say a lot of what I was seeing here was very reflective of 2026 in America. And do you think this is the right time for this to come out, and why this is the right time for this to come out?
Absolutely. And, it's taken a while to get this released, mainly due to funding shortages. But for the last 6, 7, 8 years, every month seems like the perfect time to release this, because these things just keep happening again and again. And I'm hoping that when people watch this, they'll learn some lessons and maybe figure out ways to handle things more peacefully.
I get it, but sometimes, sometimes things just happen, unfortunately. Right. I really think there's an important lesson in here, though, and I'm very happy that I was able to see this documentary. And I wanted to ask you, what would you say to people is the point of this documentary? Now, I watched an hour cut, but there exists a hour and 20-minute cut. Is that correct?
That's right. Regardless of which version you're watching, I think the lessons are really comes down to people need to talk to each other. I think almost all of these kinds of conflicts happen when at least one side is not listening to the other. In the case of the Newark situation, it was the government and the powers that be were just kind of ignoring the needs of the minority community. And there are a number of people in there, my dad included, who said, well, I thought everything was fine. It wasn't, they really are only looking at their own world and not thinking about what the other person is experiencing. So when I started shooting this, I realized whoever I asked a question to, if I asked the same question of 10 people, I got 10 different answers. So I thought, let's talk to all those people and put all those perspectives in there, and hopefully the viewer can figure out where the truth lies in the middle of all that.
I love that, because there is a scene where you ask people how they would describe what happened, and you get 5 or 6 different interpretations. I think that's right. So chilling, honestly, and so interesting that that's the case, that you get so many different answers for what the same event was.
Right, just different. They call it by different names, depending on what their perspective is. There are a lot of people, particularly in the Black community, who object to the term riot. They feel like that disrespects the value of the protest at the root of it. I don't think it does. I think that people who look at this with a clear eye can see that there was a legitimate complaint happening, and the protests went out of hand for a variety of reasons, largely because the police still didn't respond properly. And then the government kind of went overboard, bringing in the National Guard and the state police. And, it was almost bound to turn into a riot because of such a long building problem. I mean, this was 20 years of abuse that the community was taking. It's like former mayor Sharp James is in the film and says, you push people up against a wall and they feel helpless, they'll strike back, they'll fight back, they'll riot.
And I like how you went through, even after the events, the history of that mayoral seat as we come into the 21st century, with Cory Booker and Ras Baraka and all those guys leading the charge of trying to fix a place that was inherently broken from this feet up.
Right.
I really love that you take sort of a Switzerland stance on it yourself as a director, and you sort of do look at all those perspectives. That's very incredibly difficult for a documentarian to not put their own personal biases into that. How difficult of a challenge is that?
That was difficult, although I always kind of had that idea that you need to look at all sides, so it wasn't too hard. But I've been doing editing programs for many, many years, so it kind of came as a second nature to me. But I had a tremendous amount of material. The hardest part was deciding what to leave out, because I had enough material to make 3 films.
I love that. Honestly, this probably would have been a great docu-series on PBS as well, you know? And that's the other thing I was going to ask you. Why PBS? Why were they the right place to take this and to have them put this out?
Well, a lot of people who've seen it over the years as it was developing said this is a PBS kind of a film, and I agree. It's kind of what PBS was meant for, to tell these kind of stories and do it in an honest way. And it's maybe not as sexy or commercial as some other things that might be on HBO or somewhere else. But this way it could be told without any pressure to tell one side or the other, and just let it out there and let people absorb it as it is.
I would agree. I think that there's a place in this world where PBS needs to exist, and we should continue to fund public broadcasting. And that's just me getting on my Apple cart. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And it's been, a scary time. In fact, one of the stations carrying us is New Jersey PBS, and they are scheduled to go off the air in July. I hope that doesn't happen, but that's what we're up against in the current world.
Well, I mean, and it's rough, and these are the times when we need people like Fred Rogers fighting tooth and nail to keep public funding for PBS going. Unfortunately, we don't have him around anymore, so can't have that happen. But I really enjoyed your documentary. I enjoyed how I guess the rawness of it. I mean, there's a point where we're talking about a man who the police refused to help, and he passes away right there after being shot, and that image is incredibly haunting.
Yeah, it was actually the ambulance drivers, EMTs that refused to take him. We don't know whether he was already dead at that time or not.
Yeah,
but it was just one of the many sad scenes. And one of the things that I don't mention in the film because I didn't have enough evidence, but there are a lot of Newark police veterans who believe that the body count, the number of people killed, was actually way, way more than the official figure.
Yeah, and the official figure was 26. Is that right?
That's right. Although you could easily add to that. For example, there was a boy named Joey Bass who was in the film. There's a picture, it was a famous picture. It was on the cover of Life where he was laying in the street after being shot. A lot of people thought he was dead then. He was not. He recovered, but I'm told that about 10 years later, due to complications of that shooting, he died in his early 20s. So he could easily be number 27.
That's crazy. Yeah, as part of the package, that I received from the PR company, that image is included, and it's a truly haunting image because you can feel the ghosts of Newark in it when you see it, and it's very, 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 very haunting. Normally, when I have a guest on, I do like to ask them two questions, and that's every guest. And I'm going to ask them to you, even if they don't really fit the the seriousness of our topic here today. The first question is very simple. Who are some people that you look up to, who you admire, whether they be personally or professionally?
Well, of course, I have to think of my dad right off the top. He's no longer with us, but he was a big help in not only raising me, but in getting this film done, because he connected me with a lot of the people who could tell the story. Other than that, geez, in the film world, there are so many filmmakers I admire. John Sayles comes to mind as somebody I always liked, who had a very independent spirit and told stories that were a little off the beaten path. I think you could put Jim Jarmusch in that same boat too.
I love Jim Jarmusch. I can't argue there. I think Patterson's one of the best slice of life films ever made. So I love that. Those are great answers, and I really like John Sayles. I really feel like a lot of people don't.
Most people don't know who he is.
Yeah. Well, we, through myself and through my entire team, we've got a pretty big knowledge base that we pull from as we do our job. Second question is a lot harder though, so I'm going to apologize beforehand.
Okay, I'm thinking.
Two films that you could watch for the rest of your life. What two and why? And these are the only two films.
Oh boy, that puts me on the spot, because people often ask me what's my favorite, and I guess two is easier, but I always have about 100 favorites. One that comes to mind that I really love is The Deer Hunter. It's really three movies in one. It's longer than most movies, so it's get a little more to work with if you only can watch two movies the rest of your life. Geez, another one. I can't say it's like really one of my favorite movies, but every time I'm flicking through the channels and it comes up, I can't turn away. It's Titanic. Just the size of it, the grandioseness of it.
I love that because why I say too is because it gives people the option to pick something completely different from the first film. And that's exactly what you did.
I love comedies too. You know, The Jerk is something I could watch a million times.
Yeah, but I mean, any Steve Martin, just pick a Steve Martin movie, and it's probably a good answer.
Right.
I love that. I wanted to say that's what I liked about the two movies is like a lot of times we'll get one where it's a serious film, nerd pick, but that second film is so important because you want to have something that's completely different and turns the other film on its head, and I love that because Titanic is so sweeping and epic, and The Deer Hunter is very much a gritty film, and I'm not even sure that it in and of itself understands the importance of its being made while you're watching it. Do you know what I mean? The Deer Hunter has endured, even though Michael Cimino's career didn't really.
Yeah.
As a director, the film itself has truly become an absolute classic. I mean, everybody from top to bottom in that cast is now super famous. So, except for of course,
I just love the way that the characters are so well developed over years in the story that you see how they get to where they end up.
That's just great writing. You know what I mean? And I mean, 3 hours long is crazy for 1978, but I love that film. Now, it's about time for us to wrap up. So I wanted to give you the chance to pitch your film to people. 30-second elevator pitch. Why should they check out Riot when it inevitably does fall to them in the PBS app?
Well, I think that people should see this because it's incredibly relevant to what's happening today. It's a little slice of American history that is invaluable, really, and it can never be done again because there are at least 13 people in this film that are dead now. So they're telling something that we have that as a record, and it's really valuable in hopefully preventing these kinds of tragedies in the future. Plus, it's entertaining. I always say it plays out like a drama. It's got political intrigue and murder and all kinds of drama that is entertaining.
I do think there's a high entertainment value to this, despite the fact that it is a very real story being told. Riot, From Rebellion to Redemption, out now on PBS and the World. What's the other app called?
The World Channel.
The World Channel. Make sure you watch this one because honestly, it's one of those times where I kind of felt myself taken aback by the scope of the violence occurring, and it's real people and it's really happening. Thank you so much to Director Kevin McLaughlin for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.